أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين أما بعد اللهم عرفني نفسك فإنك إن لم تعرفني نفسك لم أعرف نبيك. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It is said about Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam Ali alayhi salam, that he is the one whose merits defy the double concealment. And what does that mean? It means that his friends, out of fear, had to hide his merits. And his enemies, out of hatred and envy, hid his merits. And despite that, his merits enlighten the East and the West. This is Imam Ali alayhi salam. And so it's difficult for us here in just 3 nights to try to even give ourselves a glimpse, and especially coming from someone like myself, to even give you all a glimpse of Imam Ali alayhi salam and his status and what we can benefit from him. Now yesterday we discussed the relationship of Imam Ali alayhi salam and the Holy Prophet. Towards the end of our discussion, we tried to answer the question of why is it that sometimes we feel like, or our brothers from Ahl Sunnah and sisters from Ahl Sunnah, they might feel like, why did the Holy Prophet not make it more clear if this was his intention? And what I was trying to get across last night, what we were trying to get across, was that it was made clear by the Holy Prophet. We should never think that the Holy Prophet didn't do every single thing humanly possible on this earth to make it clear the position of Amir al-Mu'mineen, the right of Amir al-Mu'mineen, the leadership of Amir al-Mu'mineen. But just like is the case with what's going on today in Palestine, we see that the enemies will put propaganda, the enemies will put obstacles from making the truth clear for their own reasons and for their own benefit. And so this is the case. So as much as we can, we have a responsibility to clarify the truth. And for those who are able to do more research, to encourage them to do more research. But at the end of the day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the best of judges. Okay? This was one thing we discussed yesterday. The second thing, and the thing that we discussed primarily, was the relationship between Imam Ali alayhi salam and the Holy Prophet. The love that they had for one another. And what we said was that this love that the Holy Imam had for Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, it didn't stop at the Holy Prophet. What we call this in Islamic philosophy, we call this contingent love. Contingent love is not what we're going for. Contingent love is the type of love where you love Imam Ali, but your love stops there. You don't recognize that the love for Imam Ali is supposed to take you to the love for the Holy Prophet. And the love for the Holy Prophet is supposed to take you to the love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? So if we see that we are not following in the footsteps of Imam Ali, that we're not acting on his words, then we have to look and say, is my love for Imam Ali the type of love that Imam Ali wanted for me? In this dua that I recited, we say, Allahumma arifni nafsak, فَإِنَّكَ إِن لَمْ تُعْرِفْنِي نَفْسَكَ لَمْ أَعْرِفْ نَبِيَكَ. Oh Allah, let me know you, yourself. I want to know you. Because if I don't know you, if I don't have ma'rifah or a deep understanding of you, I can never know your Prophet. You see, for us to really get to know the Prophet, like we said, it's a two-way street. We know the Holy Prophet, and our love for the Holy Prophet takes us to the love for Allah. But when we get to know Allah, when we have a deep understanding of Allah, only then can we truly understand the Holy Prophet. Okay, and this was Amir al-Mu'mineen. So tonight what we're going to talk about, as we're continuing our discussion on the relationships of the Imam, is the relationship of the Imam with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is appropriate, given that tonight is the night of the 21st. It's the night that we need to work on our own relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we want to take lesson from the Imam. If you send me a salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Now, when it comes to the relationship between Imam Ali and Allah, it's difficult to understand. And this is the case generally with Amir al-Mu'mineen. What the ulama say, they said he's very easy to love, but it's difficult to understand because of his depth. Shaykh Kulaini in Usul al-Kafi, right, the author of the compiler of Usul al-Kafi, he once tried to praise Amir al-Mu'mineen. When it came to Imam Ali's discussion on Tawheed, for example, in Nahj al-Balagha. If you look at the very first sermon of Nahj al-Balagha, it's Imam Ali discussing monotheism, Tawheed, and it's a very deep sermon. Hey, Maulana Sayyid SWT always mentions this sermon at the beginning of the Jummah khutbah. You may notice. Okay. Now this sermon is very deep. What Kulaini says, he says that if all of humans and jinns gathered together and tried to come up with something like this, what's written here by Imam Ali alayhi salam, they wouldn't have been able to do so without the help of the prophets. Okay, this is a compliment, right? Mullah Sadr comes and says, "Come on, man, what are you saying here?" Okay. Mullah Sadr, a great Islamic philosopher, he comes and he says that, this isn't right. This is not right what you said. He said, if all of the humans and jinns came together and tried to put something together like this, they couldn't have done it without these prophets. And he names, Prophet Musa, Prophet Ibrahim, Prophet Isa, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He says the regular prophets, we can't compare that to what Imam Ali has written here. This was the level of Imam Ali. Okay? There was a respected scholar of Ahl Sunnah, okay? He said, if you want to find the precedence in faith, superiority of knowledge, okay, the dislike of wealth, the helping of the needy, the service to the neighbors, you look at Ali ibn Abi Talib. Okay? Ayat al-Jadi Amli comes and does ishkal on this. He says, bro, what are you saying? Oh. Like, this is the level of Ali. He says, you haven't even mentioned the main thing. He said, it's a good effort, but you haven't mentioned the main thing. The main thing is the ma'rifah. The main thing is his connection to Allah. And that's what we want to talk about here in the next few minutes. So we're going to talk about the ma'rifah of Amir al-Mu'mineen by way of looking at what? At the ziyarat of Amin Allah that we looked at the last 2 weeks. Okay, we're going to do this and then we'll end our discussion tonight with some points about Laylatul Qadr. If you send me a salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
So if you recall, when we looked at the ziyarat of Amin Allah over the last few weeks, we said that these 13 points that Imam Sajjad mentioned, they are basically there for us to have a roadmap of how it is or what we should be praying for. What do we want to be like? And this is actually what Imam Ali was like, these points. If we sit back and we look at it, this is why we say, Assalamu alaikum ya Amin Allah fi ardihi. He was the Amin Allah, he was the trustee of Allah. He had these qualifications, he had these characteristics. Okay? And tonight I'm going to focus mostly on one of them, but just briefly, 2 or 3 minutes, let's look just briefly. Qada and Qadar. Right? Imam Ali says, I know the greatness of my Lord because every time I had a plan, it would go awry and Allah's plan would be better for me. I'm thinking about my own life on the drive over here, and I said, I remember I had really wanted to go to this particular law school here in the state of Michigan, and I didn't get in and I was upset. But if I hadn't moved to Texas, I never would have come in touch with those people who pushed me to go to the Hawza. Okay? There was a law firm job that I really wanted. Right? If I had taken that job, again, maybe I'm not sitting here. Right? Even when I'm in Qom, so many times I planned to do something, wanted to take a class, wanted to go to a school. But instead, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put a better plan, and if it wasn't for that plan, I wouldn't be sitting here today. Right? In each of your own lives, if you reflect on it, it's the same. Imam Ali is an example of that, of appreciating and understanding the qada and the qadar of Allah. Being thankful, right? Seeing your attachment to Allah at all times, not seeing your good deeds as coming from yourself. When it came to the issue of the door of Khaybar, he says that I didn't pick up the door of Khaybar with my quwwa jismaniyya, but with the biquwwat ilahiyya, not with my physical strength, but with my spiritual strength. I lifted this door of Khaybar. When it came to his patience, right? Somebody at the door of Amir al-Mu'mineen accepted Islam, this Jew. At the door of Fatima al-Zahra, they said, how come you're saying Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah? He said, I saw the same man who they're pulling out with the rope around his neck. These few people are pulling him out. I saw him lift the door of Khaybar. That it took 70 people or 20 people or whatever it was. according to different narrations, to lift this door. And now he's, for the sake of Islam, for the sake of unity, he's not fighting back. Took the Shahada there. The dunya, right? مَشْغُولَةً عَنِ الدُّنْيَا بِحَمْدِكَ وَثَنَائِكَ. We said, to be busy and staying away from the dunya, with being busy with the praise of Allah. He said, this world of yours, with all its position and rank, is worth less in my eyes than the moisture that comes from the sneeze of a goat. This is Amir al-Mu'mineen. Somebody came and asked him about the battle, about what's going to happen, this and that. He looks at him and he says, Imam Ali was fixing his sandal, sewing his sandal. He said, this dunya and doing hukuma and all that stuff is worth less to me than the sandal that I'm stitching here, if it weren't for enjoining the good and forbidding the evil. Okay, the idea of meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the liqa of Allah that we talked about. He said, I worship not a Lord that I can't see. Okay, when he was doing the ghusl of the Holy Prophet, when the Holy Prophet had passed away, what does he say? He says that I can hear the tears of the angels and the cries of the angels is piercing my ears. He says, I see groups of the angels coming and going all throughout the time that I was performing this ghusl. Okay, there's a beautiful book of Ayatollah Jawadi Amali. It's called the Gnosis Abali, Gnosis with a G. Okay, this is a very good book if somebody's interested in this concept of liqa Allah and learning more about this from the perspective of Amir al-Mu'mineen in his life. It's a very good book. It's a good translation as well. Inshallah, you guys can benefit. But what I really wanted to focus on here is the idea of the dhikr. And it's important for us as we go into the nights of Qadr, that Amir al-Mu'mineen, he understood something that sometimes we forget. And that is the dhikr and the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not confined to the prayer mat. When he's on the battlefield, that's the remembrance of Allah. He's doing it for the sake of Allah. Okay? When he's in the kitchen, helping, the story of the orphans, where this lady was coming home and she says, my husband was killed because he went to battle for Amir al-Mu'mineen. And he goes and he says, let me come and help. She doesn't recognize him and he says, let me come and help. He's playing with the children. He sees that as the dhikr of Allah, the remembrance of Allah. Whatever he was doing, he recognized that getting close to Allah and spirituality in Islam is not confined to the prayer mat. This is something we don't understand sometimes. We've seen the people that they're rushing to, touch the grave of Imam Ali. They're rushing to touch the black stone. If they got to kick somebody, punch somebody, uppercut somebody, backhand somebody, it doesn't matter. Right? They're touching it. That's spirituality to them. Right? They've confined their spirituality to a very limited, a very small understanding, a very childish understanding of spirituality. Okay? Whereas you see, Amir al-Mu'mineen wasn't like that. Whatever he was doing, it was for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And on the other hand, unfortunately, we have the other extreme. We have those who don't appreciate that spirituality has a place on the prayer mat, has a special place on the prayer mat. And this was something that Imam Ali taught us. They say in the Battle of Siffin, he's looking at the sky. He's looking at the sky and he's fighting. And people are like, bro, what are you looking at the sky for? And he says, I'm trying to determine if it's time for Salat al-Dhuhr. And they say, we're in the middle of a battle. People are trying to cut our hands off and kill us. This is a big battle. Tens of thousands of people on both sides. You're the leader. We're fighting, actively fighting. And you're looking if it's time for Salah. What does he say? Alama nuqatiluhum. Why are we fighting them? Innama nuqatiluhum ala salah. We're fighting them for the sake of this salah. You see? When we see that there's another mustahab action that we're doing, and we're not willing to stop that mustahab action for the sake of the salah, we should understand we have a way to go. We're not there yet. We still haven't understood Amir al-Mu'mineen. Okay? This is how he loved the prayer. He said that from the time that the Holy Prophet told me to read the Salat al-Layl, I never missed it once. They say, what about Laylat al-Harir? Laylat al-Harir was the night in the Battle of Siffin, where usually what the custom was that people would fight in the day and then in the nighttime they would take a break. Okay? Imam Ali and Malik Ashar said, look, we're just going to fight the whole night long. They're not prepared for that. And so they had what was called Laylat al-Harir, where this was when the battle turned. They fought the whole night long. These guys are like, bro, when are these guys going to go back to sleep? And they're like, no, we're not going to sleep. And they fought the whole night long. Even on that night, he didn't miss the Salat al-Layl. And just like Zainab al-Kubra in the night of Ashura. Right? This was Imam Ali alayhi salam. And now how do we understand these two things? The love for prayer and then helping the needy, helping the poor, all the things we're going to talk about tomorrow, helping the oppressed people. How do we put these together and say, how did he understand the concept of dhikr? We can do it by looking at these two examples from his life. The example of the ring and the example of the arrow. Both were when? During his salah. He's praying. He has an arrow in his foot. They say, come, when should we take this arrow out of his foot? He's take the arrow out of my foot when I'm making salah. Why? Because I'm focused on my responsibility. I'm focused on getting nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The arrow in my foot has nothing to do with my responsibility. It has nothing to do with me remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he goes and he's making his salah and they take the arrow out, no problem. And this is something that's not just the case with Imam Ali. Even the great Urafa, we have examples of the great Urafa having surgeries done on them without anesthesia because they say, okay, just wait. They start doing dhikr and they say, okay, start. When I start my dhikr, you start doing whatever you have to do. Okay? Because their mind, they're so occupied. They're so engrossed in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This was his connection to Allah. But now this same Imam Ali, who's so engrossed with his connection to Allah, when the beggar comes and says, do you have something for me? He's praying. He can't feel the arrow in his foot, but he knows the beggar is calling his name. And he puts his finger out. وَهُمْ رَاكِعُونَ, as the verse says. That the one who, while he was doing the ruku, he's giving the zakah. Why? Because his responsibility at that time and the remembrance of Allah in that time lied in him giving the zakah, not in focusing on the prayer solely. And this is what the dhikr of Allah is. It's that in every moment of your life, you're doing what Allah wants from you. You're remembering Allah constantly, and you're saying, what does Allah want from you? You know? Look at this example I just mentioned to my brother, and today, my brother reminded me about this rally for Palestine today, this afternoon in Detroit. And I said, you know what? I have two options. I practice for the speech, or I go to the rally for Palestine. I said, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala want? What's more important? I said, more important is the rally for Palestine. Okay? So I plan to go for the rally of Palestine. Okay? Trying to do the dhikr of Allah. And what happens? I was putting my son to sleep and I fell asleep. Okay. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is the qada and qadr. Allah has a better plan for you. You see? But the point being is that in every single thing we're doing, don't think, the sisters, a lot of times they say, it's Laylatul Qadr, how can I stay up? The brothers are saying, I got work in the morning, how can I stay up? It's okay, don't stay up. It's recommended, it's good. Right? If you can take a day off, take a day off, for sure. If you can stay up, if you can take a nap in the day, do that. But if the kids need you, then that's your way to get close to Allah. If the family needs you to work the next day, that's the way to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Stop confining yourself. I was teaching this class, and I said, what are the obstacles to getting close to Allah? What do they say? It's good people, practicing Shias. They're understanding though, right? We still have a ways to go when we say this. We say, the obstacle is getting close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is my kids. Sometimes my obstacles to my spirituality is my kids. It's my job, right? I got to study. These are the obstacles. Right? So we misunderstood everything. Right? We haven't understood spirituality the way Ali has understood spirituality. And these aren't obstacles to get closer to Allah. These are the wasila. These are the wasila, the intermediaries, the paths, the subul to get you to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your kids are the way to get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your work is the way to get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Vacuuming is the way to get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Setting up the food in the masjid is the way to get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? And the prayer mat is the way to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Send me a salawat ala Muhammad wa ala
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
So now that we've discussed Amir al-Mu'mineen in this relationship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we want to take our hearts and minds and understand this night better. Right? Because this night has a dual importance. The importance obviously of the Shahadat and the martyrdom of Imam Ali, and the other importance is the fact that it's the second most likely night of Laylatul Qadr. And according to some of our narrations, the Laylatul Qadr is connected, meaning that what's happening on the 19th and the 21st and the 23rd are connected. So don't underestimate this night by any means. Ayatollah Jawadi Amali, he says that the likeness of Ali alayhi salam to the rest of the people and to a regular human is the likeness of Laylatul Qadr to the regular nights. The greatness of Ali compared to the regular people is like the greatness of Laylatul Qadr to the rest of the nights. I don't know if this is a compliment for Ali or if this is a compliment for Laylatul Qadr. And you have to ask one of the ulama. Okay? But I want to take a look at this Laylatul Qadr a little bit more. Let's look at the surah of Inna Anzalna. Think about it. Okay? Inna Anzalnahu fi Laylatul Qadr. Okay? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we study in balagha, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to give adama to something, wants to give greatness to something, sometimes He doesn't mention it. Okay? If I'm on the basketball court and I'm trying to tell you that, hey, this great player is about to come into the game, and then you guys are going to be in trouble, right? Rather than say his name, I say, you know who's about to come, right? We're about to get into a fight, and I'm about to call my friend. You guys know who he is. I say, bro, you know who I'm about to call. I don't mention their name out of the adama, the greatness of that thing. Inna anzalnahu fi laylatul qadr. He didn't say inna anzalna al-Quran fi laylatul qadr. The greatness of the Quran. That's what this surah is telling us. That's what this night is telling us. وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا لَيْلَةُ الْقَدْرِ. What will make you know what the Laylatul Qadr is? Meaning that you don't know, you have no idea. You can't appreciate it. Right? Why not just tell us? He's going to tell us, but first he tells us he's not going to appreciate it. Why not? Because of the adama of the Quran. Okay? Laylatul Qadr khayrun min alf shahr. It's greater than 1,000 months. Later, in another place in the Quran, Surah Baqarah, verse 96, لَوْ تَعَمَّرُوا أَلْفَ سَنَةٍ. Those people who are thirsty for this world, who want this world only, it says they wish they could live for 1,000 years. What does 1,000 years denote here? It's not denoting 1,000 years, it's denoting forever. Laylat al-Qadr khayru min alf shahr. Sometimes the urafat, and they say, Ayat al-Juhadi says this, I think Allama mentions this, that when we're saying 1,000 years, don't limit it and think it's about 80 years, that this night is worth 80 years. It may be much greater than that. Why? Because the Quran came in this night. So what is this night pointing us towards? It's pointing us to the Quran. It's pointing us to our relationship with the Quran. Right? It shouldn't be, Imam Ali said that there should be nobody that takes precedence over you, O follower of mine, O Shia of mine, in the Holy Quran. Right, but is this the case? Do we know more Quran, or do we know more haram music? Do we know more Quran, or do we even know more, let's say, poetry, halal poetry, good poetry? Right? We're a little bit far from the Quran. This is something that we all have to take a step closer, and it starts tonight. It starts tonight with making that intention. But the question is, what is the Quran pushing us towards? Yeah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Imam Ali, night of Qadr, everything is pushing us to what? Pushing us to the Quran. Saying this is thaqalain, right? They're not going to separate until they meet the Holy Prophet in the pond of Kawthar. Meaning that if we think we're with the Ahlebaith, but we're not with the Quran, that means we're not with the real Ahlebaith. We're with an imposter. If we think we're with the Quran, but we're not with the Ahlebaith, that means we're not with the Quran, because they don't separate. Okay? But what is the Quran pointing us towards? What is the Quran pointing us towards? Brothers and sisters, there's a story of Ayatollah Khushbakht. Ayatollah Khushbakht was one of the great urafa. I mentioned a few nights back downstairs the story of him when he saw the Imam of the time, in the confines of the Holy Kaaba. Ayatollah Khushbakht mentions this mushahada that he had, or basically a vision. Okay, what was the vision? The vision was that Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam Ali alayhi salam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, that he came and offered Ayatollah Khushbakht a glass of milk. A glass of milk, if I'm not mistaken. He drinks some of the milk from Amir al-Mu'mineen. He said, there was a Quran by me. He said, when I started to drink the milk from Amir al-Mu'mineen that he had given me, I started to hear the Quran talk. What was the Quran saying? Taqwa, 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 taqwa. If the Quran, brothers and sisters, has a message for us, it's taqwa. It's doing your wajibat, it's staying away from your muharramat. It's doing what Allah wants from you. This is what the message of the Quran is. If somebody wants to say, tell me what the Quran is telling you. Tawheed and taqwa. This is what the Quran is telling us. This is the message that we have to get out to the masses in this country. Tawheed and taqwa. This is the solution to humanity's problems. Tawheed and taqwa. Okay? And this is the night for us to get that taqwa, to get back on track. Right? Brothers and sisters, on this night, rather than sitting And reading 40 du'as in a row that we sometimes don't understand, right? What's more valuable for you in this world and in the next world is that you shed one tear, half of a tear. Just a little bit of water starts to come here. But you did it because of your own sins. Inshallah, it's easy for those of you, the mu'mineen who are attached to Amir al-Mu'mineen, to cry for Amir al-Mu'mineen. But are we able to cry for ourselves? To cry for our own shortcomings? To cry for our own negligence? To cry for how we've treated other people? To cry for how we have been forgetful of our afterlife and we only thought about this dunya? Imam Ali says in Nahj al-Balagha, if you saw what the dead are seeing, you would be puzzled and troubled. And then you would listen. And then you would act. But you have these hijab. You have these curtains in front of you. The curtains are ourselves. That's it. You would be puzzled and troubled, brothers and sisters. Why? It's serious. Right? Our sins are serious. Right? And tonight is the night that we can wipe our slate clean. This week is the week that we can wipe our slate clean. But it starts with this tear. This one tear. This one appreciation for our shortcomings. The appreciation for the fact that I have done wrong to my parents. I have done wrong to my wife. I have done wrong to my husband. I have done wrong to my children. I don't want to continue down this path. Take my hand, understanding that you can't fix yourself. If you could have, you would have done it already. We need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We need Amir al-Mu'mineen. We need the Holy Prophet to take our hand. And this is the night where they will take our hand, inshallah ta'ala. Right, so put that checklist aside tonight. Right, the checklists are there, alhamdulillah, it's beneficial. Right, keep us in benefit from these du'as, of course, benefit from the munajat, of course. But don't prioritize these checklists. Right? Prioritize your connection to Allah. This is what Amir al-Mu'mineen was. This is who he was. Right? As much as we love Ali, we have to see that Ali was pointing us to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was pointing us to the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what the Ahlebaith were pointing us towards. And so tonight we remember this Ali. This Ali that we say was Amin Allah. This Ali that we say was the entrusted of Allah. And we said last night that this was the Ali who had been struck on the head. And so what I did was I put together a few lines of poetry for us to remember this night. He was struck on the head. What happened after that? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. He grabbed his head and shouted out, but not because of pain. Just had to take one more chance to glorify God's name. So blood gushed forth from the one who had lifted Khaybar's gate. They struck him even though he had not one unworthy trait. A forehead that had prostrated to God alone for 63 years, now ripped in half and gushing like a river of my mother's tears, like a river of my mother Fatima's tears. For 30 years he's missed her. We saw him cry into a well. Never did he forget that fallen door, for him a living hell. The one who prayed by the Prophet's side when no one else came, the one who called him Rasulullah when no one knew his name, the idol breaker, the name taker, now in a pool of red. They couldn't touch him in battle, so they came to the masjid instead. This is what they're doing today. They can't touch us in battle, so they come to the masjids and they drop bombs on the houses and the women and the children. Lead Salah, he told my brother, which was not a surprise. How Hassan led it, God knows. There were no dry eyes. My father sat alone, trying to stop the blood. Abu Turab, they called him. Now all he had was mud. He put the dirt upon his head as we responded to God's call. He tried to walk home himself, but he couldn't. He would just fall. We put his arms around our shoulders. Was he even in pain? Not one complaint, only shook and whispering Allah's holy names. At home, he called us to his side. He had something to say. Kulthum, he called. So the rest of us just turned away. He said, if you saw what I see now, if you saw what I now see, you wouldn't even weep. The angels on the seventh heaven are lined up for me to greet. My brother, the Prophet, now holds my hand, standing by my side. You think he would leave me alone for this very final ride? Father, she cried, her eyes spilling forth with their tears. We know you are in good hands. It's the people that we fear. They forgot the words of our grandfather, even the day of Ghadir. Then they fought against you in Jamal, even those you had held near. Go, my daughter. He kissed her head. You must be very strong. There will come a day when you will see something even more wrong. Hassan, he called out, and forward came Al-Mujtaba. You are the Imam and the most deserving heir of Mustafa. Gather the troops and prepare to march against that wretched one. If the soldiers are weak in faith, you know what must be done. Father, said Hassan, we must fight, or it is like drinking poison for me. But 25 years you waited patiently, so God's abd I will also be. My son, he said, kissing Hassan's hand, I will wait for you at heaven's gate. Be patient for what is coming. For Shahadat you must wait. Hassan stepped back. Tears began to flow. His heart could not believe it was. Hassan stepped back slowly. Tears began to flow. His heart could not believe it was Abul Hassan's time to go. Zainab, he called out. So she came close, trying to stay calm. You resemble her, he said again. He was talking about our mom. Stay strong, father, she said. Everything will be okay. Zainab, my dear, be patient. You know martyrdom is our way. A time will come when Islam needs you. Say what you have to say. The Imam of the Muslims will be killed, but don't look away. Zainab looked back at Hassan, her heart full of pain. My father looked at me and said, no, I mean Hussein. So I walked closer, my heart pounding. I couldn't say goodbye. I held his hand. He touched my cheek. We both began to cry. Hussein, he said, you and I, we both know what awaits. Rasulullah promised you'll help the Shias enter heaven's gates. Rasulullah promised you'll help the Ummah enter heaven's gates. I took one strike in prayer, and now I'm here to rest. But you'll be full of wounds and arrows with a man sitting on your chest. You will ask why he's hurting you, why they're hurting you. They will say hatred for Ali. I am so sorry, my dear son, that it's all because of me. I smiled at my father and said, we will be okay. You have taught us to be patient every single day. So with every sword that strikes me in Karbala's barren land, it will be a moment closer to again holding your blessed hand. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون بك يا الله 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 بمحمد بعلي بفاطمة بالحسن بالحسين بالذرية الحسين. Oh Allah, we ask you for the sake of the Imam who is martyred on this night, for the sake of the pure blood of Amir al-Mu'mineen, to forgive each and every one of us in this room for all of our sins before we even enter the time for Salah. Oh Allah, we ask you for the sake of Fatima al-Zahra to forgive our parents, to forgive our teachers, to forgive anyone who's taught us a word in Islam. Oh Allah, we ask you for the sake of the Quran that came down in these nights, for the right of the Quran that came down in these nights, to hasten the reappearance of the Imam and to make us his helper when he comes. Wa akhirat da'wan alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
اللهم صل على محمد
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والسلام عليك يا أهل بيت النبوة ومودع الرسالة